Donovan's phone chimed as a text came in from his mother.
Dee, someone is outside the house. They're trying to get in,
it read. It got worse. Before Donovan was able to respond, a second message appeared. Emergency alert. Environmental hazard warning in effect. All residents are ordered to stay inside until further notice. Phones throughout the classroom chimed over and over as Donovan's classmates received the same message.
Okay, phones away,
Mr. Herman said from behind his desk in the front corner of the classroom. He stood up and showed everyone his phone.
I'm getting the same messages, so I'll make sure we are all properly informed as new alerts come in.
With the windows behind him and to his side, the morning light backlit Mr. Herman, so his 6'3" frame looked even more imposing than usual. His phone was just a rectangular silhouette. He shook that silhouette for emphasis, then sat down.
Get back to the quiz,
he said.
All of you. I am sure everything will be fine. Probably an accidental sewage dump into the Townsend River. The county commissioners need to start spending some of that tax money and finally upgrade that facility. I swear, every time I drive by the plant, it stinks like...
2 quick chirps erupted over the school's PA system. Mr. Herman had just settled into his seat, but his back went ramrod straight after the chirps.
Miss Hollis,
Mr. Herman said, speaking directly to Tina, the girl who sat at the desk closest to the classroom door. Tina sprang from her seat and locked the classroom door, then pulled the shade down over the inset window. She hurried back to her desk and sat there, her eyes wide, her hands shaking. Donovan's hands were shaking too as he tried to text his mom back.
What's going on?
He texted.
There's a woman outside,
his mom texted.
She looks like me and she's trying to get in the house.
Donovan read the text a couple of times before responding.
What do you mean she looks like you?
He texted. The 3 dots floated and floated.
She looks exactly like me. She's even wearing my clothes, the ones I have on right now. Call 911,
Donovan texted. This wasn't the first time his mom had a mental freakout. Donovan's dad called the moments
her fragile state.
Donovan sent 3 question marks when his mom didn't respond.
911 won't pick up. The line just rings.
Call Dad, Donovan replied. I'm in the middle of a quiz. Not that Donovan or anyone in the classroom cared about the stupid quiz anymore. Half the class was talking back and forth, comparing texts as they received information from outside the high school. Donovan waited. No response from his mom. Did you call Dad? He texted, then waited some more. Again, no response. Donovan could vaguely hear Mr. Herman giving the class instructions, but he couldn't focus on that. His phone was his world at that moment. He sent another row of question marks. Nothing. There weren't even the 3 wiggly dots telling him she was trying to respond. It got worse.
Mr. Benoit,
Mr. Herman called out. Donovan looked up and half the class was looking at him, as was Mr. Herman. The other half of the class had their faces buried in their phones.
Mr. Benoit and everyone else,
Mr. Herman said.
Please, put your phones away.
My dad says people are acting strange,
Missy Collins announced, holding up her phone.
My big bro is saying the same thing,
Daniel Atwako said.
He's the assistant manager at the Stop and Save on Morgan Street. They are closing down and locking the doors after the manager went nuts and trashed the chip aisle. There's a fire at the gas station on Crown Boulevard,
Tim Verdun said. He leaned closer to his phone.
What the f***? My sister just sent a picture of herself outside our front door. Hey!
Mr. Herman shouted. All eyes went to him.
Put the phones away, now! We do not need rumors spreading.
Mr. Herman, these aren't rumors,
Missy said.
My dad is saying the same thing. There's some guy outside his office that looks just like him, and more people are showing up.
She read from her phone.
Everyone outside looks like someone from the office. We're locking the doors. Please, stay safe.
She looked up and around. Tears filled her eyes, but hadn't spilled over yet.
Okay,
Mr. Herman said.
I understand everyone is emotional and on edge. Lockdowns can be scary. But I assure you that there is a logical explanation for everything.
Yeah? What's that, Mr. H?
Max Kinnaman asked.
Tell us the logical explanation.
Max was the kid that sat in the back of every class. He was the kid everyone at Dorchester High School both feared and admired. No one messed with Max. But then, no one really hung out with Max either. Eyes went from Mr. Herman to Max, back and forth, until Mr. Herman said,
We'll know more soon. Principal Gordon is gathering as much information as possible. When he understands the situation and feels it's appropriate to inform the staff, then I will pass on whatever pertinent information I can. So you don't know
Max said.
Just say that.
There were a few snickers. Not many. Most of the kids were more than freaked out, Donovan included. He held up his phone.
Mr. Herman, my mom texted me, but now she's not responding. Can I call her?
That set off a tsunami of requests to call parents. Most of the class held up their phones and tried to shout over each other for permission to get a hold of their families.
Stop! Stop! Stop!
Mr. Herman shouted.
Put your phones away, people! Let's see what we can learn before we all panic.
Donovan's phone chimed.
Mr. Benoit.
Mr. Herman said firmly. Donovan ignored the man and read the message. Then he read it again.
She's in the house,
the text read.
Mr. Benoit!
Mr. Herman shouted.
I have to call my mom,
Donovan said and pressed the call button. Mr. Herman stalked down the aisle toward Donovan.
I literally just said that everyone needs to,
Mr. Herman said. But Donovan tuned him out the second his mom picked up.
Help me, Dee!
Donovan's mom said.
I'm locked in the bathroom. She's trying to break down the door.
Who is Mom?
Donovan replied.
Me!
His mom shouted.
It's me!
Mr. Benoit!
Mr. Herman said, standing next to Donovan's desk with his hands on his hips.
Give me that phone.
Donovan held up a finger.
Mom, that doesn't make sense.
Donovan replied, his finger still held up.
It must be some homeless lady that looks... Give me that.
Mr. Herman said, and yanked the phone out of Donovan's hand.
Hey!
Donovan protested, but Mr. Herman was already walking off, the phone to his ear.
Mrs. Benoit?
Mr. Herman asked into the phone.
I am sorry, but we have a lockdown situation that we are dealing with. I am sure it's nothing for you to be alarmed over as soon as...
The man stopped, then held the phone out. He studied the screen and could see that the line was still active. Then Herman put it back to his ear. It got worse.
Miss Benoit? Are you still there?
He asked.
What's going on?
Donovan asked, jumping up from his seat.
Miss Benoit? Yes, I can barely hear you. What is that noise? Are you in any...
He stopped talking, and his entire frame went rigid. Donovan reached him and tapped him on the elbow. Mr. Herman turned around, and Donovan took 2 steps back, nearly tripping over his own feet. Mr. Herman's face was pale, and his eyes were wide. Then he slowly took the phone from his ear and pocketed it.
What did she say?
Donovan asked. Mr. Herman swallowed hard, then went and sat behind his desk. Donovan looked around, confused. He saw the same confusion on his classmates' faces.
What's got your panties in a wad, Mr. H?
Max asked from the back of the room.
Nothing,
Mr. Herman said. He shifted his focus to Donovan.
I'll hold on to your phone for now, Mr. Benoit. Everyone else, please put yours away, or I will confiscate them. What did she say?
Donovan asked again.
What's going on? Sit down, please, Mr. Benoit,
Mr. Herman said. Donovan did not sit down. He approached Mr. Herman's desk. That's when he got a good look at just how pale Mr. Herman had gone, and beads of sweat formed on the man's forehead.
Give me my phone,
Donovan said.
Sit down, Mr. Benoit,
Mr. Herman said, but his voice was less than convincing.
Give it to me,
Donovan insisted.
Now, goddammit!
A girl in the 3rd row started crying. That set off 3 other students. Mr. Herman looked shell-shocked and completely at a loss as to what he should do.
Keep your voice down,
Mr. Herman said to Donovan.
And do not take that tone with me, Mr. Benoit. I'll let it go this time due to what I just...
Donovan waited, but Mr. Herman did not continue.
Give him his phone, Mr. H.
Max called out from the back of the classroom.
Sit down, Mr. Benoit,
Mr. Herman said once more, ignoring Max.
Now, please. No,
Donovan said.
Give me my phone. I need to call my mom back.
Mr. Herman swallowed hard and shook his head.
You should go sit down.
Missy Collins stood up from her desk and walked toward the windows.
Miss Collins,
Mr. Herman shouted.
you need to sit back down. Everyone, sit down.
What's Principal Gordon doing?
She asked. The whole class turned to the classroom windows that overlooked a huge common area. Standing in the middle of the commons was a man dressed in a blue suit, just like the one Donovan had seen Principal Gordon wearing that morning as he greeted the students when they arrived and walked through the front doors. But there was something wrong with the suit.
What's he got all over him?
Boyd Tustin asked. Boyd was a linebacker on the football team, so when he stood up, everyone behind him shouted for him to sit down and stop blocking the view. He shrugged and sat his huge bulk down.
Fucking hell!
Max said.
Mr. Kinnaman!
Mr. Herman shouted.
Language! Language!
Max said and stood up. He pointed out to the commons.
That's fucking blood all over his suit!
The entire class went into a panic. Half of them got on the ground and under their desks. The other half stood up and moved closer to the windows for a better look. Donovan joined the students at the windows.
Everyone, please!
Mr. Herman cried out. But it had no effect. No one was listening to him anymore. It got worse. The students at the windows gasped and backed away almost in unison. Some had their hands to their mouths. Some had their phones up and were immediately recording.
Well, that's fucking weird,
Max said, standing right next to Donovan.
I didn't know Gordon had a twin brother. A what?
Mr. Herman asked, and finally joined the students at the windows.
He doesn't. Principal Gordon has a sister, and she lives in Oklahoma. Tell him that,
Max said and pointed out the window. Principal Gordon stood in the middle of the commons, his body still, his blue suit covered in dark stains. From the east side of the commons, a man moved slowly toward Principal Gordon. The new man looked exactly the same, except his suit wasn't stained at all.
To Gordon, see?
Max said to Mr. Herman.
Oh,
Donovan said.
He's right. You think, Benoit?
Max responded.
That's, strange,
Mr. Herman said. He was no longer focused on the class. His attention was solely on the two Principal Gordons as one approached the other.
What's he saying?
Donovan asked as the approaching Gordon spoke to the one standing still.
He looks just as confused as us. Clean Gordon is our Gordon,
Max said.
What does that even mean?
Daniel asked from Donovan's other side.
Use your eyes, Atwako,
Max said, pointing out the window.
One is covered in blood and standing there like a f***ing zombie, and the other one is not covered in blood and is acting like Gordon should act. He doesn't have a twin,
Mr. Herman mumbled. It got worse.
Yeah, well, these f***ers do,
Boyd said, holding up his phone so everyone close to him could see the video.
This is happening at the Burger Shack. People are fighting each other. Like, fighting themselves. Jesus Christ,
Tim said, staring at the screen.
That's Eloise Buntner. She graduated last year. And look, she's...
Those looking at Boyd's phone screamed, and all took an involuntary step back, like the phone itself would attack them.
She popped her f***ing head off,
Tim said, and sat down hard in the closest chair.
Her head? She just popped it off. No,
Mr. Herman said, shaking his head back and forth.
No, it's a TikTok prank. Yes, TikTok. That's the problem. I think... Mr. Herman?
Missy said, putting her hand on his elbow since she couldn't reach his shoulder.
Why don't you sit down, Mr. Herman?
Missy steered the stunned teacher back to his desk.
Good thing it's not an active shooter,
Daniel said, watching Missy walk Mr. Herman back to his desk.
Because Herman is already checked out. We're on our own. No shit,
Max said. He laughed. Then he stopped.
Oh man, the Gordons are facing off. This should be good.
Clean Gordon had reached Bloody Gordon. Clean kept a good couple of feet between them, but was actively talking to and gesturing at the other man. The students could see Clean Gordon's mouth moving, but couldn't hear anything he was saying.
Gotta be weird to see yourself covered in blood,
Max said.
What the hell do you think he's even saying?
Daniel asked.
Oh,
Donovan shouted. Bloody Gordon lunged at Clean Gordon and grabbed him around the neck with one hand. Clean Gordon shouted and swatted at Bloody Gordon as he was lifted up off his feet. Clean Gordon's face turned bright red, then dark purple. Then snap! Suddenly, at a very wrong angle, Clean Gordon's head wobbled onto his right shoulder. The whole class screamed. They weren't the only ones. Other classrooms that looked out onto the commons could be heard screaming too as they witnessed the brutal death of their principal. Bloody Gordon kept squeezing and squeezing until the dead principal's neck was completely crushed into mush. Then, with a flick and twist, the dead man's head popped off and went flying across the commons. When it hit the ground, it rolled and rolled, lost from sight directly under the row of windows that Donovan, Max, Daniel, and the other students were staring out of. Bloody Gordon shook gore from its hands, then slowly turned toward the classroom. He cocked his head and smiled. Before anyone could say a word, the man sprinted straight for the windows, mouth agape as an unearthly noise burst from his throat. Students scrambled backwards, bumping into desks and overturning chairs in their mad escape away from the windows. Even Donovan, Max, and Daniel retreated as the crazy man raced toward them. Then slam! Bloody Gordon crashed into the windows at full speed. His forehead met reinforced glass, and his skin split open wide. Blood poured down his face and into his still wide-open mouth. The students clapped their hands over their ears as the unearthly noise penetrated through the glass and entered the classroom.
F***ing hell!
Max shouted over the noise, his palms firmly pressed to the sides of his head. It got worse. Bloody Gordon began to pound his fists against the glass. In seconds, cracks appeared. His fists hit the reinforced window over and over and over, turning the pane into a shattered mess of cloudy glass and quickly bending wire.
He's getting in!
Daniel shouted, hands to his ears. Donovan looked about the classroom. Most of the students were huddled against the far wall, desperate to get as far away from the windows as possible. A few eyes met his, but most were closed as students muttered prayers or comforting words or whatever to themselves. Donovan tore his eyes from his fellow classmates and continued to look about the classroom. Then he saw it. He ran to the paper slicer tucked on the far side of Mr. Herman's desk. Donovan barely gave his teacher a second look as he grabbed the slicer's handle, lifted and twisted. The moment he stopped covering his ears, intense pain filled his head. He let go and stumbled back, both hands back in place instantly.
We're gonna need that!
Max yelled. Donovan turned around and couldn't believe his eyes. Bloody Gordon had shoved the broken window pane out of its frame and onto the classroom floor. Max, Daniel, and Missy just stood there, hands clamped over their ears, all looking at the crazy man struggling to crawl through the window as the broken pane lay at their feet. Max reached behind him and snagged the backrest of a chair. He immediately cried out, but he didn't stop. He dragged the chair forward, lifted it into the air, and brought it down on the top of Bloody Gordon's head. The unearthly sound abruptly stopped as Bloody Gordon's face smashed into the top of the low bookshelves directly under the window. The crazy man paused, then gave his head a hard shake. When he looked back up, his nose and most of his teeth were shattered, adding to the blood already pouring from the man's forehead. Then he smiled.
Oh,
Max said, and retreated quickly. Daniel joined him, but Missy was too slow. A hand shot out and grabbed her by the back of her skirt as she tried to turn and run. Bloody Gordon pulled Missy to him, and his other arm reached up and wrapped around her throat. It got worse.
No!
Donovan shouted. With the unearthly noise over, Donovan returned his attention to the paper slicer. He pulled and tugged, but the blade wouldn't come loose. Then Donovan lifted the whole thing over his head and brought it down as hard as he could against the floor. Industrial tile cracked and splintered as the heavy body of the slicer finally separated from the blade. Donovan turned back just as Missy's head popped off like a dandelion. Bloody Gordon started screaming once again, and it took all of Donovan's willpower not to drop the blade so he could cover his ears. He ran to the window, raised the blade up over his head with both hands, and brought it down with every ounce of strength he had. Bloody Gordon's head split right down the middle. The two halves fell to either side, but were still attached by flesh and sinew. Donovan struck again, and again, and again until he hacked the two halves completely off. Then he dropped the blade into the mess of blood and flesh around him and stumbled backward before reaching a chair he could collapse into.
Hell!
Max said.
Remind me not to with you, Benoit.
He killed Missy, Daniel whispered. Donovan's eyes slowly moved from the headless corpse of Bloody Gordon to the headless corpse of Missy Collins. Then he turned and threw up. He wasn't the only one. A good quarter of the students pushed out of their protective pack in order to empty the contents of their stomachs. Phones were blowing up. With the unearthly noise gone, the sound of message chimes and ringtones filled the silence. Students scrambled to pull phones from their pockets and backpacks and purses. Everyone was suddenly talking over each other as they announced what they were learning.
The National Guard is barricading roads. The police station is on fire. Smoke is coming from the hospital. My dad's not picking up. He's not answering.
My mom says she killed something that looks like my baby sister.
It got worse.
Look,
Donovan said to Max and Daniel as movement outside caught his eye.
that's Mrs. Herndon.
The 10th grade social studies teacher was running across the commons with her own doppelganger right on her ass. She didn't make it very far. The doppelganger caught her by the ponytail and pulled back so hard that the skin around Mrs. Herndon's throat split in front. The teacher clasped her hands to her throat as she fell onto her back. Then the doppelganger leaped into the air and came down with both feet onto Mrs. Herndon's face. The sound of the woman's skull caving in echoed across the commons and into the classroom. There was a lot of screaming and even more throwing up.
My mom.
Donovan said and stood up. He raced to Mr. Herman's desk and held out his hand.
Give me my f***ing phone.
Mr. Herman looked up with dazed and bloodshot eyes.
What?
He asked.
My phone! Give it to me!
Donovan shouted. Almost robotically, Mr. Herman reached into his pocket and pulled out Donovan's phone. Donovan snatched it away from the man and dialed his mom's number. When she didn't pick up, it went to voicemail.
Mom!
Donovan shouted into the phone.
Call me back, please! Hell!
Max said. While Donovan kept trying to call his mom, he turned back to the windows and was stunned by the horrifying sight of half the staff running outside into the commons as they were chased by their doubles. Coach Carpenter, Mrs. Thomas, the receptionist, what's her name? Miss Lipton, Big Joe the custodian, so many more. The adults were desperate to escape. None of them did. While the kids stared in horror, the adults' heads were popped, torn, ripped, and even bitten right off their necks. Pop, tear, rip, bite, gone. It got worse. The commons had become a bloodbath. But even as open necks still spouted blood, it looked like it wasn't enough for the doppelgangers. As one, the group of doubles turned in different directions and looked toward the classroom surrounding the commons. Then they ran straight for the windows, that unearthly noise blaring from their open mouths. The students in Mr. Herman's class screamed, but all seemed to come to the same conclusion at the same time. One of their windows was already broken in. Without saying a word to each other, instead of covering their ears, the students began barricading the windows with their desks and chairs. Then they pulled the heavy cabinets and bookshelves over. They had just gotten the last piece of movable furniture in place when bodies slammed into the windows outside. Somehow, a hand managed to reach through the broken window and squeeze through a crack between bookshelves. Donovan instinctively picked the paper slicer blade back up out of the gore and slammed the edge down on the hand's wrist.
Nope, definitely won't be f***ing with you, Benoit.
Max said as the bloody stump retreated back from the gap between the bookshelves. Boyd and Tim shoved the shelves together, closing the gap. It got worse. Something smacked against the classroom door's window.
They're inside,
Daniel said.
You think?
Max snapped.
We just watched them chase half the f***ing staff out into the commons. Where the f*** did you think they came from? Yeah, idiot. I'd say they're inside.
Max looked at the blade still in Donovan's hand. Donovan looked down at the blade and then over at the classroom door. The smacking grew louder and more insistent. So did the unearthly noise. Tim Verdun coughed hard, then fell to his knees. He had his hands over his ears, but blood started to seep from between his fingers.
Oh, crap!
Boyd said just before he fell to his knees. The door window cracked, crumbled, and then was shoved out of its frame just like the other window. Bloody hands tore the shade off and tossed it to the ground. Faces peered in through the open space. Recognizable faces. Faces that looked exactly like many of the students cowering in the corner, staying as far away as possible from the wall of windows and the classroom door. The mouths of the faces peering in opened wide, and the faces screamed that unearthly noise. Students fell to the ground, writhing in pain. Donovan stumbled against Max. The two boys held each other up and staggered to the one place left to hide, the closet behind Mr. Herman's desk. The teacher was catatonic. He sat there in his desk chair and stared at the barricade as it shook and shuddered. The pieces of furniture began to teeter and scoot. Then a bookshelf toppled over and a head appeared. Mr. Herman's. The man in the desk chair screamed. His double screamed back. Max and Donovan shoved past Mr. Herman and yanked the closet door open. They rushed inside and slammed it closed.
Let me in!
Daniel cried from the other side.
Guys, let me in!
Neither Max nor Donovan let the other boy in. Instead, they bolted the closet door from the inside and retreated as far back into the closet as they could.
No!
Daniel screamed from outside the closet. The scream was cut short. A second later, there was a thunk. It got worse. Blood seeped from under the door, and Donovan watched the pool get bigger and closer. He lifted himself up onto a short filing cabinet and tucked his knees up under his chin. Max did the same on a different filing cabinet. The two boys looked at each other in the dim light the edges of the closet door provided.
Good thing there's a lock,
Max said. Donovan nodded. Then the boys jumped as Donovan's phone rang. He tugged it from his pocket and nearly started crying when he saw Dad on the screen.
Dad!
He cried as he answered it. Donovan winced as noise filled his ear.
D?
A faint voice called.
D? Can you hear me?
Dad?
Donovan replied.
I can barely hear you.
D, the National Guard has the town cordoned off. I can't get home.
Donovan's dad shouted over the phone.
I can't get a hold of your mom. What is going on?
I don't know.
Donovan said.
People are killing each other, and they look just like everyone else. He's not going to understand what you mean,
Max said, knees to his chin, eyes on the blood still pooling from under the door.
Listen, Dad, if you see someone that looks like...
Donovan started to say.
Holy God!
Donovan's dad interrupted.
What is that? There's something in the sky over the town.
The man's voice was drowned out by a combination of unearthly screams, soldiers shouting and giving orders over bullhorns, and then gunfire. A huge explosion filled Donovan's ear and the phone went dead. Max's head shot up.
What was that?
Max said.
Something blew up.
Donovan said.
You think?
Max replied. He shook his head.
Sorry. What did your dad say? He was talking about something over the town. Then there was that explosion.
Donovan said. Another far-off explosion reached their ears. The school shook and dust rained down from the ceiling above their heads. Both boys looked up at the ceiling, then looked at each other.
Oh,
Max said. Donovan's eyes went back to the ceiling, and he slid off the filing cabinet. The blade lifted to shoulder height. Max slid off his filing cabinet too, and frantically searched the closet.
What are you looking for?
Donovan asked.
What do you think?
Max snapped.
A weapon!
He opened a plastic container and found several pairs of heavy-duty scissors.
This will do,
he said, and pulled out 8 pairs. He carefully staggered the pair's handles on his fingers and gripped tight.
Hell,
Donovan said.
You look like that goth guy in that old movie. Maxwell Scissorhands,
Max said, and held up his hands in front of his face. In each hand he gripped 4 pairs. The handles staggered so that they overlapped, turning his hands into spiked weapons. Then he joined Donovan and stared up at the ceiling. Another explosion rocked the school, and more dust rained down. But the dust didn't stop falling after the explosion had settled. The two boys looked at each other and nodded. They knew what was up there. They waited and waited. It got worse. The closet door was ripped off its hinges. The bolt snapped in half. Donovan and Max's attention was pulled from the ceiling and to the doorless opening. Half the football team stood outside the closet. They'd shoved Mr. Herman's desk away for more room. All of them were coated in blood. A figure slipped through the mob and smiled at the two boys. It was Boyd Tustin, or Boyd Tustin's double. And the double was just as huge as Boyd, of course.
F***ing hell!
Max said and took 2 steps back. Donovan didn't. He turned and squared off with the Boyd double.
F*** you!
Donovan said, blade held up. The Boyd double's smile widened. The doubles of the football team opened their mouths and screamed. Donovan cringed at the unearthly sound.
Kill it, Benoit!
Max shouted.
Do it!
Before Donovan could strike, the ceiling exploded into a shower of broken mineral fibers. Max cried out. Donovan couldn't help himself and glanced over his shoulder. Max was pulled up into the ceiling, kicking and screaming. He punched upward over and over with his scissor fists, and blood sprayed down into the closet. Then he was gone, and his screaming suddenly stopped. Max's head fell from the open ceiling and landed at Donovan's feet. Hands yanked Donovan from the closet and tossed him across the classroom. He slammed into a desk and fell into a heap. When he tried to stand up, he realized he'd lost the blade. He also realized that the room was filled with headless corpses and bloody doppelgangers. Donovan was only able to get to one knee as the unearthly sound tried to beat him down. Warmth dripped down Donovan's left cheek and jawline. He realized he was bleeding and couldn't hear out of that ear. His eardrum must have burst. But Donovan also realized that the pain from the unearthly sound was less. A lot less. Without hesitation, Donovan snagged a stray pencil from the floor and jammed it into his right ear. Pain exploded and he cried out as he pulled the pencil free. The unearthly sound became a whisper. Donovan stood up. The Boyd double crossed the room, the copies of the football players right behind him. Donovan sprinted to where the blade lay and threw himself at it. He slid in an inch of blood and gore and just managed to snag the blade as his ankles were grabbed and he was pulled to the center of the classroom. Without even looking, Donovan whipped his arm back and the blade came to a shoulder-jarring stop. Although still a whisper, Donovan could hear the unearthly screams intensify. He was lifted off the ground and spun around, his face coming nose to nose with Boyd's double, the paper slicer's blade embedded in its rib cage. Donovan knew what was going to come next. He'd watched it happen to his classmates. He'd feared it had happened to his mother, possibly his father. Donovan refused to let it happen to him. He pulled the blade free just as the Boyd double's other hand closed around his neck. The pressure was intense, and Donovan's airflow was instantly restricted. With black motes swimming across his vision, Donovan lifted the blade up and then hacked and hacked and hacked with what strength he had left. He fell to the ground hard, and he would have been knocked unconscious if the thick carpet of gore hadn't lessened the impact. The Boyd double stood over him, one arm missing, as well as most of his face. The football doubles pounced, but Donovan wriggled his way out of their clutches. He was coated in so much gore that the doubles couldn't get a solid grip on him. With no other option available, Donovan slashed with the blade again and again, then slipped and slid his way to the wall of broken windows. He threw himself outside into the commons and rolled for several feet before getting back up and limping toward the east hallway. Navigating the corpses and body parts that blanketed the commons was not easy. Donovan could hardly take a step without risking being tripped up by severed heads and limbs. He finally reached the far side of the commons and pulled open the hallway door. Inside was nothing but a sea of blood and offal that came nearly up over his ankles. Donovan waded in and waded through, doing more slipping than walking. When he reached the front office, Donovan risked looking back over his shoulder. The football double stood at the doors to the outside commons, watching him.
You!
He shouted, and even in his own head the words sounded like he was screaming through thick cotton. The football doubles didn't move an inch. Donovan wasn't about to waste the opportunity. He fled past the office and out the school's front entrance, blade held out like it could ward off the devil himself. The scene outside was nothing short of pure chaos. Crashed cars filled the parking lot, as well as the street out front. Parents were either running for their lives, screaming for their children, or fighting versions of themselves. A few students had made it out of the school like Donovan had. but they were quickly overpowered by either their own doubles or doubles of their parents, or just random doppelgangers who were happy to pop the heads off anyone they could capture. Donovan turned and ran. He sprinted around the crashed cars. He dodged and avoided doubles that jumped out at him from behind crumpled fenders and stacks of dead bodies. He raced past a woman punching her double in the face over and over. He skirted a mob of doubles that had a hold of Coach Wilson's arms and legs and were pulling in opposite directions. Donovan ran and ran. When he was finally several blocks from the school, he slipped into an alleyway between a hardware store and a hair salon. Explosions and gunfire filled the air from the town limits, intense enough that even Donovan could hear them. The boy stood there in the shadows of the alley, his body waving back and forth, and he just stared out into the street. More crashed cars, more dead bodies, but luckily, no doubles in sight. Donovan took a deep breath and knew what he had to do. He needed to get home. But before he could leave the alley, a black sedan screeched to a halt, blocking his way. The driver's side window rolled down, and Donovan's dad began shouting at him. Donovan hesitated. He hadn't seen any of the doubles drive cars, but then he'd been trapped in a classroom all morning, so he had no idea what the things were capable of. When Donovan didn't move, his dad opened his car door and stepped out into the mouth of the alleyway. He gestured wildly for Donovan to come to him. But before he could take a step, he was tackled to the ground. That got Donovan moving. He sprinted to the rolling, fighting forms on the ground and raised the blade over his head, then paused. He had no idea which was which. One was real and the other was a double, but they were so intertwined in their fighting that Donovan couldn't tell the difference. Before he could act, a massive shadow overtook the street. Donovan looked up and gasped. He didn't know what he was looking at. Whatever it was covered in lights and spires and spikes and flaming ports. The unearthly screams the doubles made started to make sense to Donovan, or as much sense as anything could make. A hand grabbed Donovan by the shoulder and whirled him around. The blade was knocked from his grip. Donovan could only stand there, stunned, as he stared into his own face. It got worse. One nice thing about the apocalypse is the worry over morning breath goes right out the f***ing window. So I don't think twice about huffing my sourness in the face of the young smartass who thinks he's a soldier. Not that I would have cared before the whole place went to shit.
I already told you,
I say.
I ain't leaving my property.
The kid, I think he's a corporal, but I don't know. I never served. Something about my psych eval not being up to snuff. Like some army doctor is the one to be judging my sanity, or anyone's sanity. Anyway, the kid sighs and looks back over his shoulder.
Don't be looking to your army buddies to save you,
I say.
They can't get me to leave neither. National Guard, sir.
The kid says.
We're not regular army, sir. Then that means you're irregular, and you can take your irregular asses right on down the street.
I say.
I ain't leaving my property. I know, sir.
The kid says. He's really exasperated now. Looks like he might cry. I wouldn't doubt it one bit if he starts spilling tears the way his generation is.
We're not asking you to leave your property,
the kid continues.
We're asking you to stay on your property, preferably inside your house, until the CDC is able to identify the issue and fix it. Contain it,
I say.
You said contain the first time. Right,
the kid replies.
Contain, but hopefully fix. Until then, the governor, with the president's authorization, has declared martial law.
He reaches into his breast pocket and pulls out a business card. A goddamn business card. What's this world come to when the military is acting like a bunch of corporate douchebags by handing out business cards?
On the front are the rules. Please follow them closely, sir,
he says.
For your safety.
I snort and read the card. 1. Stay within the bounds of your property, unless you have express permission to leave. I stop reading right there.
What about all the moms and dads passing by my house each day with their little snot noses, huh? They got permission.
I pick a piece of bacon from my teeth and spit it on the ground by his boots.
Do they? Yes, sir, they do,
the kid says.
And they are carefully watched. Carefully watched,
I say with a snort, then keep on reading. 2. You must provide proof of any permissions received. 3. All residents are required to be indoors by sundown, no exceptions. 4. Food and water will be provided every third day. Special requests will be considered, but may not be honored due to limited supplies. 5. If you have specific medical needs or require medical attention, please call 911. The emergency service is now operated by the Army National Guard. 6. While it is not our intention, the use of force may be necessary if the above rules are not followed. I read the card a couple of times, then flip it over.
My name's Corporal Hollenbach,
The kid says.
My number is right there, sir. Please call me if you have any questions. We'd rather answer questions first and clear up any issues than make a mistake and use deadly force when it could have been avoided.
This generation, I swear. All the polite disclaimers they say to save their own egos. It don't matter a goddamn lick whether or not I ask any questions first. If the government wants to come in shooting, then they'll come in shooting. I wish them good luck with that, considering. I let the card fall from my fingers and land in the overgrown grass at my feet. My lips turn up in a smile, but I ain't happy. That's for damn sure.
That's a Remington 870.
The kid says, looking at the shotgun I cradle in my arms.
You duck hunt?
This is the home defense model, I say. Bought this just before the vid hit. Good thing I did. You couldn't find one even 3 states down during lockdown. I snort and sneer at the kid. Never thought I'd need it for another one.
Sir, I can assure you this is a lot different than COVID.
The kid says. I just keep sneering.
Hollenbach, let's go.
One of his army buddies shouts from the Humvee parked in front of my house.
We got 8 more blocks to hit for sake. Be careful with that, sir.
The kid says, nodding at my shotgun.
Don't you worry none about me,
I say. You have a good day now.
You too, sir.
The kid says, then joins his buddies, and off they go. I watch the Humvee drive a few houses down, picking up other kids playing Army along the way. Then they keep going and take the corner and are lost from sight. Good goddamn riddance. I look down at the business card half hidden in my grass. I kick at it with the toe of my boot. Son of a bitch, I mutter as I bend down and pick the card up.
You need to mow your lawn.
The screeching voice calls from across the street. The widow Bollinger has come out onto her front porch.
Yeah, I'll get right on that.
I say as I tuck the business card into my front pocket. Now that my hand is free, I give the widow a wave. It's a 1-finger wave, and I don't really wave so much as I hold that finger up high so she can see it clearly. I don't want any misunderstandings when I'm trying to be neighborly.
Right back at ya.
Widow Bollinger says, returning my salute. I can't help but chuckle as I make my way across my lawn and up onto my front porch. It's been a morning, I'll say that. With weary bones already the wearier from dealing with that government bullshit, I plop into my rocking chair and rest my shotgun across my legs. On my left side is a faded red cooler filled with cans of Youngling. About the only beer I drink anymore, now that all the American companies have been bought up by foreign corporations. Never trust foreign beer. They put stuff in it to make you weak like Europe. On the side of me is a long blue cooler. Ain't no drinks in that one. Nope. That's where I keep the boxes of extra shells for my shotgun. I also keep an AR-15, 2 Smith & Wesson .45 semi-automatics, and an MR Desert Eagle, which, if I'm being honest, I'm not sure these old wrists can even handle anymore. That baby gives quite a kick. But I got it in that cooler with my other firearms, along with enough ammo for everything to last me until Gabriel blows that horn and Jesus comes down from on high with his fiery sword, ready to smite the wicked. Not that I'm much for church or scripture, but damn, wouldn't that be a sight to see? I check my watch. 10 a.m. in the morning. Time for breakfast. I lean to my left and open that faded red cooler. The ice is already halfway melted. I'll need to drain out the water and top it off by lunch, otherwise the beer will start to warm up. And I ain't drinking warm beer, even if it is American. The hiss and fizz of the beer as I crack the can open just fills me with joy. Is there any greater sound?
Sheldon!
Widow Bollinger yells from her own front porch.
You better eat something before you open a second.
Damn woman is always trying to tell me what to do. I get it that she lost her husband last year to the cancer, but that don't mean she gets to start using me as her target for all her nagging and never-ending judgment. There's 1,000 reasons I didn't get married, and harpies like her is at the top of the list.
Too late.
I yell and hold up the can.
I already had one with my coffee this morning.
I chug the beer, crush the can, and throw the empty onto the pile at the far end of my porch. It bounces off the side of the pile and falls through the broken slats of the porch railing, landing with a few others down in the weeds and dead rose bushes. Without taking my eyes off the woman, I reach back into the cooler, pull out another beer, crack it, and take a nice long sip.
So damn good.
I say loudly. Widow Bollinger gives me the middle finger once more, then shuffles over to her own rocking chair and practically falls into it. One day she's gonna miss and break a hip. She better not cry for any help from me. No way. I'll let that die before I waste my time trying to help her. We both sit on our respective porches, rocking the morning away. I drink beer. She glares at me. I get up a couple of times to piss off the porch, hoping that'll drive her inside. It don't. By about 1 in the afternoon, much to my annoyance, the neighborhood gets active. Parents with kids walk past my house on their way to the park 2 blocks away. Moms with strollers, dads giving piggybacks. Ain't they all just a bunch of happy fools?
Afternoon, Mr. Gibbons.
A woman says as she and her 2 kids pause at my front gate.
Did the army come by and talk to you too? Some snot-nosed kid with a gun and a soldier costume came by, yeah.
I reply.
Gave me a goddamn business card. You ever hear of such a thing?
She winces at my cursing. They all do. Gotta protect those innocent ears.
Yes, well, I was wondering what you think about the sundown curfew.
She says. Her kids are squirming. The one in her arms is a cute little girl with blonde hair and dark brown eyes. She could be 3 or 4. The one on the ground is a boy, maybe 5 or 6 or something like that. What do I know about kids and ages? Jack, that's what. Anyway, the boy's busy yanking up weeds that have sprouted outside my gate. Better him than me is all I can say.
Curfew?
I say and snort.
What are they gonna do? Shoot me?
The mom looks nervous. I can't ever remember her name. I can't remember any of their names. Just moms and dads and little brats. Although, that little girl sure is cute. She always gives me a big smile.
I believe they may arrest you,
The mom says.
Well, they can sure try.
I say and fish out another beer. What is this? 6, 7, 10? I don't know. Counting is for nerds. She keeps standing there, staring at me.
Something you need?
I ask.
My husband.
She starts to say. Then I swear to God she chokes up and has to look away.
Yeah?
I ask and belch.
What about him? He at work right now?
She shakes her head.
No. His office shut down when they quarantined the town. Sounds reasonable.
I say and sip some more. The little girl waves at me. I scrunch up my face and stick out my tongue. She giggles. Dang, she's cute.
My husband was taken to the hospital last night,
The mom says. That gets my attention.
What was that?
Widow Bollinger shouts from her porch.
Does he have the crusties?
That's what they're calling it. The crusties. When it first appeared in our town, no one had a clue as to what was going on or where it came from. As far as I know, it ain't spread nowhere else. Just us lucky SOBs here in good old Vicksburg. Folks started getting dry skin around their lips and eyes. Then it spread. Before people knew it, their entire bodies was covered in what looked like scales. I ain't shitting ya. Folks grew scales. They started calling us Ground Zero, but I can say this place has always been a zero. The mom turns around and shields her eyes from the afternoon sun.
Yes, ma'am.
She says to Widow Bollinger.
They are pretty sure they caught it early. I'm hoping to go see him tomorrow or the next day. They said they'd call me.
Even from across the street, the widow and I share a look. Mama ain't never getting that call.
Shouldn't you be back at home?
Widow Bollinger asks. And I know what she's really asking. Why the f are you and your little germ factories walking around the neighborhood if you have been exposed to the crusties? Jesus H. Christ and all his pogo sticks. This woman could kill us all.
The Army said that close contact isn't how it spreads.
The mom says.
They say there has to be some sort of exchange of fluids like a bite.
The widow and I both snort loudly. The mom swallows hard and tries to smile as she looks back and forth between us.
Well, I'm sure it'll all be fine.
I say with enough sarcasm in my voice that the little boy stops pulling up my weeds and grabs his mama's hand instead. I give the kid a wink, but he don't care. He's too busy hiding behind his mama's legs.
It'll be just fine.
Widow Bollinger calls out.
What you needing, hon?
The mom looks nervous as all hell, and not just because I've been giving her shit.
I was hoping, Mr. Gibbons, that maybe you could show me how to shoot.
She says. Now, I gotta say, that ain't what I was expecting to come out of her mouth. I narrow my eyes and study her for a second. Then I nod, set my shotgun to the side, and stand up. Woo, a little wobbly from drinking and sitting so long. But I get it under control and lean my forearms on the porch railing.
You got a gun?
I ask because no way am I letting her have one of mine.
Yes, sir.
She says.
It's a shotgun like yours. My husband's. He duck hunts.
Good for him.
I say.
It American?
I'm sorry?
She asks.
The shotgun.
I say.
Is it American? Or one of them foreign models?
I don't know.
She answers.
Well, I tell you what.
I say and stand up straight. I reach back and grab my shotgun and cradle it in my arms.
You bring it by tomorrow, and I'll have a look at it.
Thank you.
She says.
Don't thank me yet.
I reply.
I said I'd have a look at it. I didn't say I'd teach you how to use it. I want to look first.
Okay, I understand.
She says, nodding up and down like a fool. I can tell she don't understand shit. I'll look at the shotgun, and if it ain't foreign, then I'll see if it's even worth showing her. Some folks can't handle guns. They're more likely to shoot themselves or their pretty little girls than shoot any threat.
We'll see.
I say.
Bye now.
To her credit, she gets the hint and goes on her way to the park to join the rest of the clueless. The widow and I share a look again after Mama and the kids are out of earshot.
What do you suppose she knows that we don't?
Widow Bollinger shouts. I shrug, then turn and walk inside. Time for a roast beef sandwich. The sun is just about to set as I finish grilling up some hamburgers I had in the fridge. I slap those patties between some buns with nothing but ketchup on the side. Patties, buns, ketchup. If the beef is good, then you let the beef be the star. Ain't no need to turn around when I hear the engine rev from down the street. I take a huge bite of burger with my back to the street. The engine gets closer, then brakes squeal, and I hear it idling in front of my house.
Sir?
A voice calls to me.
What?
I ask without turning around.
Curfew is in effect, sir.
The voice says. With my mouth full of burger, I turn and stare at the same damn kid that was here this morning. I stare and chew. Stare and chew. Then I swallow and take another bite, starting the whole thing all over again. Stare and chew. Stare and chew.
Sir, you need to go inside, please.
The kid says.
Hollenbach, was it?
I ask around a mouthful of meat and bread and ketchup.
Yes, sir.
He replies.
Corporal Hollenbach.
Well, Hollenbach, I like to sit out on my front porch and watch the fireflies.
I say.
So you have a good evening now.
Sir, all residents are required to be inside after sundown.
He says, and takes a look over his shoulder at the last bit of pink light reflecting off the clouds.
Which is in about 5 minutes.
I am inside.
I say, stare and chew, stare and chew.
You must be behind closed doors.
He says.
Please, sir.
I glance past him at his buddies waiting in the idling Humvee. There are 3 waiting. 2 of them are ignoring me and chatting away. The third is eye-f***ing me hard. I ain't afraid of this Hollenbach. I ain't really afraid of none of them. The eye can try to glare me down all he wants.
I'll finish up my dinner and head inside.
I say.
I appreciate that, sir.
The kid says. He looks around like he has a secret, then clears his throat.
Just in case you decide to change your mind, patrols will be driving by every hour on the half hour. Every hour on the half hour?
I ask and laugh. Burger flies from between my lips.
Yes, sir.
The kid answers.
Good to know.
I say.
Now, like I already said, you have a good evening.
The kid hesitates, then backs up as the eye starts smacking his hand on the side of the Humvee.
Let's go, Hollenbach!
The eye shouts. I watch them drive off, then I turn back to my burgers. I got 2 more to go and a cooler freshly stocked with beer. Seems like a fine time to have a seat and enjoy the night. Of course, the widow Bollinger has other plans. As soon as that Humvee is gone around the corner, the old shuffles out onto her porch and takes a seat in a rocking chair.
Why are you always fighting them?
She shouts at me.
Just let them drive by, then come outside. It ain't rocket science, Sheldon.
When your husband died, was it really the cancer? Or did he just forget he couldn't look you in the face without turning to stone?
I shout back.
Asshole!
She yells. With a chuckle, I sit down and finish off my burgers. Then I crack open a beer and ease myself into my rocking chair. Now, I'm gonna be honest. I have no plans to be outside on this front porch too much after the sun goes down. That ain't a good idea. I seen what happens to folks that decide otherwise. My next door neighbors on the right tried it one night and they got themselves in a heap of trouble. And by a heap of trouble, I mean some crusties came up and ripped them to shreds. I ain't saying they just killed them. No. Those crusties turned them folks into stew meat right before my eyes. This was early on, before we knew our little town was already being targeted and talked about by the idiots in Washington. By the time we got shut off from the rest of America, I'd say half the houses in this town had sleeping crusties in them just waiting for night to come. The first week the military showed up was nothing but door kicking and gunfire. But I know they didn't get them all. They know they didn't get them all. Probably why they's so scared all the time. Yeah, anyway, I wasn't lying when I said I like to sit out on my porch and watch the fireflies. But I ended up seeing a hell of a lot more than some bug asses blinking away that night. It was dark, and I saw the crusties climb over the neighbor's gate. White picket gate, of course. The fact they didn't open the gate and climbed over should have clued me in right there and then. But like I said, it was the beginning of the apocalypse. I just thought the people was being weird like people are. The neighbors were neighborly and stood up and waved to the crusties. When the crusties didn't wave back, they started asking them questions. When the crusties didn't answer the questions, the neighbors began to panic a little. They should have panicked a lot. Those crusties raced up those porch steps faster than a plot hound treeing a bear. Before I could even shout, the blood was already flying. I went inside that night, locked and barred the doors, and haven't spent a single night outside since. I'm ornery, not stupid. So once the sun is all set, I finish off my beer, scrape off and cover my grill, then grab up the coolers, one for beer, one for guns, and head inside for some shut-eye. Ain't like I can watch TV. No, sir. The National Guard has us all cut off. No TV and no phones except for local calls, which I ain't quite sure how they make that happen with these fancy cell phones. But I guess it's the government, so they can do all sorts of crazy things. And especially, no internet. But what they can't stop are radio waves. They try to jam them, but I got an antenna up on my roof, so I can pick up that old country and western station on the AM. With Harper Valley PTA playing in the background, I brush my teeth and double-check all my doors are barred. And I do mean barred. I got 2x4s across each and every door. I do worry a little about my windows, since they ain't boarded up or nothing. But so far, I ain't seen the crusties try windows. After I spit and rinse, I go turn the radio off and head off to bed. That's when I hear the sound. A scratching like fingernails on wood coming from my front porch. I have my shotgun up to my shoulder in a blink. Then I walk around the house and make sure every light is off. Once that's done, I stand in my hallway and listen. I know what's out there. I just don't know how many. After a few minutes of the scratching, I figure it's just one of them. The damn thing better not even think of sitting in my rocker. I don't need no scaly ass putting its germs where I sit. I take a few steps toward the front door. The scratching stops. Listening hard, I move from room to room. Crusties don't just leave. They like to check a place out. I don't know if they's hunting or what, but they never just walk away after one try. I can't see nothing outside the windows, even with all my lights off. But by the time I'm in my kitchen, the scratching has started up again. I open the door to the mudroom and aim my shotgun at the outside door. There, peering in between the 2x4s, I see slitted eyes. Snake eyes. Because crusties don't just get scales, they get the snake eyes too. One day science will explain that to me, but for now I don't give a flying wet fart. Scaly skin with snake eyes makes about as much sense as everything else happening these days. The eyes watch me. I watch the eyes. Then the scratching becomes louder. It gets stronger and stronger. Then it turns to pounding. The glass window in my back door cracks, but I don't retreat. I'm the one with the shotgun, not the thing out there. And I ain't seen nothing, scales or not, come back from a short-range blast from a 3-inch Magnum shell. The eyes watch me. I watch the eyes. Then after a few minutes, the thing is gone. But I don't leave. I keep waiting. When I don't hear or see nothing for a good 30 minutes, I finally lower my shotgun and head off to bed. I'm thinking I may board up the windows tomorrow, just in case. It's afternoon by the time I finish boarding up my windows. The lady and her kids haven't come by yet. I glance up into the sky and guess it to be maybe 4:30 or so. Most of the clueless moms have walked to the park and back already. Although, I gotta say, there were a lot fewer of them than I've been seeing. Maybe about half as many, maybe less.
She's got kids.
Widow Bollinger shouts.
She probably had to stay home because one of them is in a mood. So what?
I shout back.
She don't want to bring me that shotgun of hers. What do I care?
I bet she'll be by tomorrow.
Widow Bollinger says. I reply by letting loose a loud fart just after I open a fresh beer.
You are one disgusting animal, Sheldon Gibbons.
Widow Bollinger yells, like she ain't sitting and farting all day herself. I can hear them all the way across the street. The Humvee pulls up out front. Great.
Hello, sir.
The kid says. I guess I'm on his route now.
We have cases of water for you.
What the hell do I need cases of water for?
I ask, not bothering to get up.
That's why God made taps.
Yes, but just in case the water supply is cut off, you should probably have a couple of cases on hand.
The kid responds. I don't say nothing. He fidgets a bit. It's fun to see him squirm.
Just put the water on the sidewalk.
I yells from inside the Humvee.
Let's go.
So the kid does just that. He goes to the back of the Humvee and unloads 1, 2, then 3 cases of bottled water and leaves them on the sidewalk. He waves and gets into the Humvee. I don't wave back.
They left me 4.
Widow Bollinger shouts from her porch.
That's because they know dried out old crones like you need more moisture.
I shout back. An explosion at the west end of town causes me to jump, and the widow cackles like she's watching a sitcom. But in seconds, a huge black cloud billows up into the air. That stops the widow's cackling, all right. We both watch the skyline for a while.
That looks like where the hospital is.
I shout loud enough for the bitch to hear me over the sirens that fill the air. She don't respond, but I see her head nodding when I tear my eyes away from the black cloud. A few minutes later, the smell hits our road.
Jesus Christ,
I say and cover my nose.
smells like an outhouse and slaughterhouse done and burst into flames.
Soon the smoke is drifting over the whole town.
Feel free to keep breathing that,
I say to the widow as I gather my stuff up.
but I'm calling it.
I'm only inside for about 10 minutes when I hear engines revving and racing by. I look out through my front window and see Humvee after Humvee racing down the street. Except they ain't racing toward the explosion. They's racing away from it. That ain't good. One of the Humvees stops in front of my house and I see the kid jump out. He unloads 2 plastic crates from the back of the Humvee and leaves them on the sidewalk. Then he's back in the Humvee and the thing is racing off to catch up with the others. I soak a bandana in water and wrap it around my nose and mouth. Then I run outside to the sidewalk and pop open one of the crates. Food, medical supplies, some sort of water filtration tablets, and a whole lot of matches and other shit. I open the other one and it's the same.
One of them is mine.
Widow Bollinger yells at me.
Then come get it.
I yell back as I lift a crate and walk back to my porch. I turn and see her hobbling down her steps. I pray for her to fall, but she don't. When my front door closes behind me, I set the crate down and bar the door. Then I take the crate into the kitchen and leave it there so I can hurry back and watch the fun. Son of a... The widow has her garage open and is wheeling a goddamn dolly across the road. I get a few laughs as she struggles to get the crate on the dolly, but my laughs die away as she finally manages it and easily rolls that dolly with the crate back across the road, right into her garage. As the garage door rolls down, I see a fist stick out with a middle finger extended. Then the garage door slams all the way closed and I go back to the kitchen. I kill some time taking an inventory of the crate's contents. The medical supplies could be useful, but hell if I'll eat any of the food. It's all military. What do you call them? MREs? You know, those pouches filled with the government considers edible. I get everything put away because what else am I going to do? Then I go back to the front room and plop down on my couch so I can watch out the front window, which now has a board across it. Well, it. Okay, I got an idea. I take the bar off the front door, hurry outside into the stink, and grab my rocking chair. Then I set the chair in my hallway just past the door. Now I can look outside, and if any trouble comes by, all I have to do is kick the door closed. I sit there, wet bandana around my face, shotgun on my lap, beer cooler to my left, gun cooler to my right, and wait. Not a soul goes by, just wafts of smoke now and again. The smell is creeping inside the house, but not a lot I can do about that. This house is so old it has more cracks than solid bits these days anyway, so it ain't as if the door being closed would keep the stink out. The widow is on her porch and shouts something at me.
I can't understand you with that damn scarf on your face.
I yell. She pulls it down and yells.
Sun's going down.
I can see that, woman.
I yell back.
Get your old bony ass inside.
I ain't going in until you do.
She yells.
I am inside, you dumb.
But I don't finish because I see movement out in the street. I lean forward and can't believe my eyes. Krusty's is out before the sun has gone down. The widow Bollinger has seen them too, and she lifts up her own shotgun. Probably one of them Mossbergs, not a Remington like mine. Why ain't she going inside? I stand and wave at her in a shooing motion. She shoos me back. Damn the woman. I shove my rocker down the hall out of the way, then move my gun cooler closer to the door. With my shotgun to my shoulder, I step out onto my porch for a better look at the street. I'm just gonna take a peek, then get my ass inside. Except what I see freezes my feet to the warped boards of my porch. The whole street is filled with Krusties, and they're coming from both directions. Far off, I hear gunfire, then screams. Then I hear gunfire and screams, and it ain't so far off. I shoo the widow again. She flips me off without lowering her shotgun. Jesus, how many are there? Looks like the whole town. This ain't good. I'm about to say it and go inside. I can barricade myself down in my basement and wait until well, I was gonna say morning, but it ain't looking like that matters much anymore. I take a step back inside, then I stop when I see her. That cute little girl. She's walking along with the Krusties like she's out for a walk with her mama. I didn't know the little thing could walk yet. I only seen her in her mama's arms. God damn it. I gotta do something. I can't just leave that cute little girl out there. I'm thinking on what to do when life decides for me. The little girl sees me and giggles. Then she points at me, and all the Krusties' heads turn my way. And here I thought me and that cute little thing had a connection. You see? This is why you can't trust people none. Even the cute ones is gonna turn on you.
Get off my lawn!
Widow Bollinger screams, then opens fire as a group of Krusties bust through her gate and run towards her porch. Here we go. I drag my gun cooler out onto the porch, take aim with my shotgun, and wait for the Krusties to get in range. The little girl is lost from sight as dozens of the damn things break my gate and come for me. Oh, do I let them have it? I'd probably drop 6 or 7 before I have to reload. Except there ain't no time for that. The Krusties is running over the dead ones and almost at my porch steps. I kick open that gun cooler and grab out my AR-15. Don't you tell me these things ain't for home defense. I flick off the safety and squeeze the trigger. My first 3 rounds go wild, then it's headshot after headshot once I'm dialed in. Oh boy, it's like shooting turkeys in a barrel. Them Krusties is dropping like flies. The AR clicks empty, and I pop out the empty mag, snag a fresh one out of my cooler, and keep firing. But there's just too many of the bastards. The AR clicks empty again, but I ain't got time for a new magazine. I drop the rifle and pull out the 2 45s from the cooler. I double fist those f***ers and squeeze the triggers until both guns click empty. The Widow Bollinger screams, but I can't see what's happening across the street. No way I'm taking my eyes off these snake-eyed motherfuckers. I hear a last shotgun blast and my insides turn a bit. That sounded a little like the Widow going out on her own terms, which, as I look at the dozens of Krusties still coming for me, don't sound like such a bad idea. I grab my last gun from the cooler, the Desert Eagle. Damn, the thing is heavy. I take aim and fire, but I ain't got my feet braced right, and I lose my balance as the recoil nearly breaks my wrists. I stumble back, trip over my empty gun cooler, and fall flat on my ass. That's when I hear the giggle. The Krusties are on my porch now and waddling between their legs that cute little girl. Except she ain't so cute no more. Them beautiful brown eyes are slits now. Those rosy cheeks are nothing but scales, and her blonde hair is wispy and falling out right there on my porch. The Krusties all hold back a little and let the girl get through them until she's standing in front of me. I'm still on my ass, my feet out, the Desert Eagle aimed for the girl's face. What are they doing? The little monster smiles at me, and all I see is fangs filling her mouth. She just stands there. Then I understand as a scaly hand touches her shoulder. I look at the hand and follow up the arm until I see the face of the Krusty. It's the girl's mama, I think, and she ain't here for a shooting lesson. F me, I get it. I see it now. She's teaching her little one to hunt, to kill. It'd be cute as if I weren't the damn prey.
Sorry, sweetie,
I say.
but you ain't learning on me.
As the girl pounces, I flip the Desert Eagle around and tuck the barrel up under my chin. I wish I could have had one more beer. American, of course. The last thing I see are snake eyes and a mouthful of fangs. The door to my cabin chimes. I ignore it. My focus is on the video logs I'm currently analyzing on my tablet. Whoever is outside can wait. The door chimes again. Apparently, they will not wait.
Enter!
I shout, my eyes glued to the tablet. I haven't made my bed, and none of my half-eaten meals have been placed in the carbon reclamation chute. The chute is clogged. I need to tell maintenance as soon as I'm done analyzing the footage.
Captain Lambert? What?
I ask without looking up. No need. I know it's my first officer, Commander Broussard. I'd know his voice in the middle of a raging plasma storm. When he doesn't say anything, I set my tablet aside and turn for my desk.
What is it, Broussard? Sir, Fleet Command has allowed us to dock, but we are confined to the ship until we have the situation sorted out.
Broussard says. His eyes stayed glued to mine, but I know he registered the mess around us. He's a tall man, much taller than most spacers. While I am just under 6 feet, Broussard is easily a couple of inches over that. It must make rushing through the ship a dangerous task, especially for that forehead.
Fleet Command said that? Yes, Captain,
Broussard replies.
And why didn't Fleet Command tell me directly?
He's silent.
Broussard, that was a direct question. As ship's captain, why didn't they contact me directly?
The man shifts from foot to foot, but maintains his composure. After a few seconds of indecision, he says,
You know why, sir?
I sneer. This is why I've never recommended Broussard for his own command. Those seconds of indecisiveness. A captain must act. Whether or not it is the correct action, a captain must act. To wait, to think, to decide. No, that'll kill your entire crew.
May I speak freely, sir?
Broussard asks.
Go ahead,
I say.
Come in and close the door.
He stiffens.
No, thank you, sir,
he says.
I am fine here. I am your captain and I just gave you an order.
I say, then point to the chair on the other side of my small desk.
Come in, close the door and take a seat. I respectfully decline. Then you are not granted permission to speak freely,
I say.
Dismissed. Sir, we need to talk. We are talking, Commander. Sir, about what has happened.
He begins, but my finger snap cuts him off. I point directly at him as I slowly stand. Broussard takes a step back, afraid. I laugh.
Fine,
I say and sit back down.
Speak freely, Commander.
He hesitates, of course, before stuttering.
Ensigns Kane and Parker. What about them? Well, sir, I think we need to discuss what happened to them,
he continues. I slap my palm on my tablet screen.
What the hell do you think I've been doing in here day after day, hour after hour?
I spit as I shake the tablet at Broussard.
I've gone over the video logs again and again and there is nothing.
The tablet creaks under my white-knuckled grip.
Have you checked these? Have you?
I'm shouting for sure now. What else can I do in the face of such idiocy? They have the same logs I do. Why can't they see what I do? It's all right there in front of their faces.
See?
I yell, shaking the tablet at Broussard. From out in the passageway, Master Sergeant Shen peers into my cabin.
Commander?
He asks.
I'm fine, Shen,
Broussard says, his eyes on me. Shen nods and retreats.
Sir, all surveillance logs were purged from the ship's mainframe,
Broussard says before sighing.
That is what we need to talk about. Purged?
I ask, confused. I set the tablet on my desk and bend over it. It comes to life as it scans my features. My finger taps and scrolls, pinches and swipes.
Then what the hell is this?
I hold up the tablet, showing Broussard a still image from one of the videos. Broussard closes his eyes and shakes his head. Then, his eyes snap open as sweat beads on his high forehead. He stares at me as the seconds stretch on.
Are you afraid of me, Broussard?
I narrow my eyes.
No, sir.
Oh, he's lying. The too tall bastard is lying to my face. I don't even need to see the sweat on his forehead to know that. I can smell the lies and the fear wafting off his unwashed uniform.
You need to get yourself together, Commander. You need to set an example for the subordinates. Change your uniform, take a shower.
I sneer again.
And definitely do not let those bloodstains set in. That would be a disgrace to you, to this ship, and to Fleet Command.
Broussard frowns and examines his uniform.
Captain, I don't have bloodstains on my uniform. Commander, I don't have the time or patience for your crap,
I say.
Take a shower, put on a clean uniform, and make sure the bloodstains do not set in. Is that so hard to understand? No, Captain,
Broussard says.
But, sir, I have to reiterate that. Just do what I say, Commander.
He pauses, then nods.
Yes, Captain. Heard loud and clear. Good,
I say and wave a hand at him.
Dismissed. But, sir, we need to talk about dismissed!
I shout. He pauses again, wasting even more precious seconds. Then he nods and backs out of my cabin. When the door slides shut and the locks engage, I returned my attention to the footage. Now, what was it they said about Kane? That he left the mess to get something from his cabin and never came back? I checked my notes. Yes, that's what the witnesses said. Kane left the mess. An ensign saw him exit the starboard lift on deck 6. Another saw him leave his cabin and return to the lift. However, no one actually saw him get on the lift. In fact, the last witness says they saw me addressing Ensign Kane before the lift arrived. That doesn't make sense. I was on the bridge, not down on deck 6. That's the deck for living quarters, the one I'm on right now. I pull up footage from deck 6. I see Kane clear as day. He steps off the lift and heads to his cabin. I switch views and follow him. He goes into his cabin and I lose him. Private cabins are not surveilled. Then he's back in the passageway with a book in his hands. I zoom in. Moby Dick. Dear God, no wonder everything has gone to shit. Moby Dick? What was the man thinking? Everyone knows you don't bring that book onto a ship. If the man wasn't missing, a few weeks of latrine duty would show him what bringing bad luck on my ship means. A cramp seizes my neck muscles and I groan. I set the tablet aside and use both hands to massage the pain away. It's the same between my shoulder blades. It feels like I've pulled my entire back lifting something heavy. But all I have been lifting is this damn tablet. Damn, I can't wait to get off this ship and soak in a tub. Maybe I'll get a massage in the spaceport. When the pain eases up enough for me to continue, I tap the tablet. Kane stands there in freeze frame with that abominable book in his hands. I let the video proceed and watch as he stops halfway down the passageway. He looks like he's talking to someone, but there's no one there. With a swipe and a tap, I open my notes and reread the event order. I have a separate note for each event, but they're obviously flawed. My notes clearly state the proper findings. 1. Everyone on the ship except for me has gone mad. 2. I must remember that everyone on the ship except for me has gone mad. 3. The book is the catalyst. 4. There is a conspiracy. 5. Everyone on the ship has gone mad except for me. 6. Except for me, everyone on the ship has gone mad. It is a solid list. A list built on hours of research. Research of surveillance footage that they all say has been purged. How can they say that when I'm staring right at it here on my tablet? In the video, Kane continues to talk to the open air. There's no audio, so I study his body language. He's not at ease, but he's not afraid either. No, that's embarrassment on his face. He tries to hide the book, but he's too late. My eyes go wide and I shove the tablet away from me. What did I just see? It's impossible. Slowly, I pull the tablet back. I take a deep breath and go back 2 seconds in the footage. Then I play it and watch once more. What the hell? I play it again. And again. And again. Kane exits his cabin and stops in his tracks. He sees someone. He tries to hide the book, but he's been caught. He pulls it out from behind his back and starts talking to someone. Kane holds the book out like whoever he's talking to has asked for it. And I swallow hard. And someone takes the book from him. Someone the cameras don't pick up. Kane is there. The book is there, but it's hovering in midair. No one is holding it. How is that possible? An old ghost story my grandfather told me comes to mind, and I laugh. Ghosts, please, not on my ship. The footage continues, and Kane, looking embarrassed, just stands there as the book is held up in front of him. It's being shaken in his face. Whatever is happening, I have to say that Kane handles it well. He looks ahead at full attention, and his eyes do not go to the book once. He's staring directly at whoever is dressing him down. Except there's no one there. I growl in frustration and rub the back of my neck. I roll my head a few times, then give it a shake. After Kane receives his scolding, the book floats off down the passageway. Kane stays at attention until he suddenly snaps to and follows the book, like he's been ordered to follow. Standing at attention, getting an obvious dressing down, being ordered to follow. Whoever Kane was talking to was a superior officer, that's for sure. Except there's no one there. The door chimes.
What?
I shout. The door opens, and Master Sergeant Shen looks in at me.
Are you all right, Captain?
Shen asks.
You screamed. I did no such thing. I thought I heard you yell something about no one here,
he says.
I can assure you, sir, someone is out here at all times. If you need assistance, all you have to do is get out.
I snarl.
I don't need any damn assistance.
He blinks at me like a stupid pig. I expect more from a man of his rank. And why is a Master Sergeant guarding my cabin? Are they afraid of what I will discover?
Did you misunderstand me, Master Sergeant?
I snap.
No, sir.
Shen says and withdraws. My cabin door closes and locks. Okay, enough of Kane. None of his footage makes sense. Let's try a different tack. I bring up the report on Ensign Parker. 12 hours after Kane disappears, Parker goes missing too. But with Parker, there are no witnesses. He was last seen in engineering. I bring up that footage. There he is talking to Chief Engineer Kurzel next to the main drive cores. Nothing looks amiss. The two men are simply having a conversation about something pleasant. They are both smiling and laughing. A lot. What are they up to? I've known Kurzel since our days in Fleet Command training. I trusted the man implicitly, and I used to trust Commander Broussard, even my entire crew. Used to, anyway. But here we are. Parker leaves engineering and makes his way to the port lift. There he stops. Someone is called to him. He turns around and smiles. Then he looks confused. Then, without warning, he's standing at attention, his back rigid and eyes locked dead ahead. Someone questions him and he looks confused. Good. Someone should be asking him questions. He and Kurzel were obviously conspiring about something. Whoever is questioning him knows it. Good. The lift opens and Parker looks behind him. Then he looks forward again and frowns. This happens several times, and waves of nervousness comes off the ensign before he finally steps onto the lift. But the lift doors don't close behind him right away as they should. It's as if they are waiting for someone else to enter the lift. Except there is no one else there. After a couple of seconds, the lift doors close. I skip ahead to the footage of Parker on the lift. He looks uncomfortable. He's standing at attention and keeps wincing. Wincing, as if he's getting dressed down, just like Kane. Parker suddenly whips his head around to look at whoever is giving him hell. Then his head snaps back to attention, his eyes forward. Damn, someone's really tearing into him. I switch footage to where Parker exits the lift. On the living quarters deck, the deck I'm on right now. Parker is already talking as he leaves the lift. It looks like he's trying to make some case. He's pleading with whoever is following him down the passageway. Then he stops outside a cabin and turns around defiantly. Someone has called his bluff and he's not happy about it. He shakes his head over and over. Then he reaches out and tries to push whoever it is aside. Wrong move. The cabin door behind him slides open and Parker is shoved backward into the cabin. He tries to escape, but he's knocked back even harder. It looks like someone has hit him. He puts a hand to his cheek and then looks at it. Blood. A lot of blood. And it's pouring down the side of his face. He charges the door but doesn't make it out of the cabin as he's hit again. And again. And again. The cabin door closes and the footage stops there. I play the footage back over and over. I try to see whose cabin Parker is forced into, but I can't quite make out the number, no matter how hard I try to zoom in or enhance the image. Someone tampered with the footage. I take a deep breath and push away from my desk, staring up at the ceiling while my mind whirs to find some logic in this. Kane looks like he's in an argument over the book, a forbidden book that everyone knows is not allowed on board my ship. He's called out on it, and then he disappears. Parker is caught conspiring with Chief Engineer Kurzel. He's called out on it, and then he disappears. It doesn't make sense. But I know what I have to do. I open comms.
I need to see Chief Engineer Kurzel immediately, I say.
Captain?
The voice responds.
Did you not hear me?
I snap.
I need to see Chief Engineer Kurzel immediately. Make that happen now.
I cut comms. I don't need more idiocy in my ear. I'm the captain of this ship, and when I give an order, I expect it to be carried out. 5 minutes go by. 10 minutes go by. No Curzel. 20 minutes go by. 30 minutes go by. I'm about to open comms again when my cabin door chimes.
Enter!
I shout. Oh, this will be good. I've seen the evidence. Curzel won't know what hit him. Instead, Broussard returns.
Where's Chief Engineer Curzel?
I ask. Broussard narrows his eyes and stands there with his back to the open cabin door.
I'm hoping you can tell me, sir.
He says and waits. I wait too. Seconds tick by. Broussard says nothing.
Fine,
I say.
What are you hoping I can tell you, Commander? Where Chief Engineer Curzel is, sir.
Broussard says.
Is he not in engineering? That would be the logical place to look, Commander. He is not in engineering, and he hasn't been since his shift ended. Then how would I know where he is? I've been cooped up in my cabin. No, sir, you were not. The Chief's shift ended 1 hour before you were asked to remain in your cabin. Asked?
I laugh.
I don't remember being asked to remain in my cabin. I was told to do so.
Broussard doesn't respond. I sigh.
Okay, Commander. Let's shove all this bullshit aside and say what is really happening here. Can we do that, Commander? Can we be honest with each other? I hope so, sir.
Broussard responds.
Good, because what is really happening here is a mutiny, right, Commander? No, sir.
Broussard responds instantly.
I am not a fool. I do not think you are, Captain. Far from it. Then stop lying to me.
I shout.
Sir?
Shen asks, appearing behind Broussard.
I'm fine, Master Sergeant.
Broussard says without taking his eyes off me.
Are you sure, sir?
Shen asks. He looks at me.
I can restrain him if needed. What did you just say?
I roar and jump up from my seat. The tranq pistol is in Shen's hands, faster than I can track, and it is aimed directly at me.
I've got this, Shen.
Broussard says.
Step back outside, please. I'm leaving the door open, sir.
Shen says as he reluctantly holsters his pistol. Then he's lost from sight, leaving me semi-alone with Broussard again.
Do you know where Chief Engineer Curzel is, Captain?
Broussard asks.
Do I know where the conspiring traitor is?
I reply.
No, I do not. Maybe ask his accomplice, Ensign Parker.
Broussard stares at me, then shakes his head and leaves. The door closes silently behind him. I immediately sit down and bring up footage of the engineering deck. I skip past where Curzel and Parker have their little planning session and fast forward to the end of Curzel's shift. He leaves engineering and takes the lift up to the living quarters deck, the same deck I'm being held on. Curzel steps off the lift and comes to a sudden halt. He looks down at his chest like someone has placed a hand there and is physically keeping him from taking another step. Whoever it is, they've sniffed out Curzel's betrayal already. Good for them. Unlike the two ensigns, Curzel looks angry immediately. He stares down at his chest, looks up at whoever is in front of him, and slaps the invisible hand away. Curzel throws a punch at the invisible Inquisitor. Of course, he looks to be tussling by himself, but that's impossible. The man wrestles and almost gets free, but his head is knocked back and blood spills from his crushed nose. I laugh. He took a hard knee to the face is what happened. Whoever this invisible person is, he's good. With one hand to his bashed nose and the other hand warding off his attacker, Curzel backs down the passageway. He opens his mouth to cry out. Without sound, I can't tell if he manages to get anything out before his head rocks back. He's hit so hard that his teeth shatter and fly in every direction. Blood splatters everywhere. Then the man crumples to the deck and his limp body is dragged down the passageway to a cabin door. The door slides open and Curzel is pulled inside.
Shen!
I shout. After 2 seconds, which is a ridiculous amount of time for me to wait, my cabin door slides open.
Captain?
Shen asks from my doorway.
Come here and look at this.
I say and wave him over.
No, sir.
He replies.
Do I need to repeat myself?
I ask. He must not have hurt me.
No, sir. I am fine right here.
He says.
What is it you need? I need you to come over here and look at this footage.
I shout.
No, sir.
He says calmly. I start to stand, but Shen's hand flies to his tranq pistol.
No, sir.
He insists and shakes his head. I grind my teeth. I can feel the enamel chip and I taste bone. Then I swallow, take a deep breath, and smile at Shen.
Then I'll describe it to you, Master Sergeant.
He doesn't reply or take his hand off his pistol.
Crizel was taken on this very deck,
I say.
He stepped off the lift and was accosted immediately.
Shen frowns.
How do you know this? Because I watched the f***ing footage,
I yell. Shen cocks his head, fingers tightening on the pistol. I growl, but hiss out a sigh, calming down.
Crizel was accosted at the lift,
I continue.
Then a fight ensued. If you look out in the passageway, you should see blood and bits of teeth. That's all Crizel's.
Shen's eyes widen. He doesn't say a thing to me. He just backs out and the door closes and locks. The madness must make them all allergic to the truth. That's it. It's something in them. Something worked its way inside their minds and warped them against reality.
But I've seen reality,
I say as I tap the tablet. I bring up the Crizel footage and desperately try to see what cabin he was dragged into. But just like with Parker, I can't make out the number. An hour goes by. 2 hours. I'm getting hungry, but then I look around my cabin at all the trays of half-eaten meals and my appetite goes away. I really should dump all of that into the carbon reclamation chute. I even stand up to do so, but then remember it's clogged. Yet again, my thoughts are interrupted by a chime at my cabin door.
What?
I shout. The door slides open for a man I don't recognize.
Captain Lambert,
He says. It's not a question.
Yeah? And who the are you?
I ask. He smiles and takes a step inside my cabin.
Sir,
I hear Master Sergeant Shen say from out in the passageway.
I'll be fine, Master Sergeant,
The man says and takes another step inside my cabin.
I have experience with this. I should be in there with you, sir,
Shen says.
Oh, let the man come in, Shen,
I shout. Silence drags on.
I'll be fine,
The man says finally.
Yes, sir.
Shen says just as the cabin door closes.
I don't know you,
I say.
and you aren't in a uniform, so I suppose you're some civilian? No, Captain,
The man says.
I'm Lieutenant Commander Levi, Chief Investigator for Fleet Command's Division of Investigative Services.
Oh yeah, I've heard of you. It's about time they sent someone competent to sort out this madness.
Madness? Why do you say that?
Because they've all gone mad and turned against me.
I yell. Then I hold up the tablet.
They say all surveillance footage was purged, but I have it all right here.
He watches me closely and studies me. I snort and shake my head as I sit down and set the tablet on my desk.
You don't believe me,
I say.
I wouldn't say that.
Levi says. He gestures to the empty chair at my desk.
May I sit and have a look at the footage?
Yes, of course.
He smiles and takes a seat, removing a black orb from his pocket.
May I record our chat?
He asks.
Since the surveillance system is completely offline, this is the only way to maintain a proper record of our conversation.
I don't care what you do.
Good,
He says, and places a finger on the orb.
Lieutenant Commander Joshua Levi with Captain Victor Lambert. It is 1800 hours on May 17th, 2309.
You done?
I ask, impatient to get to the facts.
Yes, thank you.
He says and looks at my hands.
May I?
He reaches for the tablet, but I yank it out of his reach.
Nice try.
I say.
Do you think I'm a fool?
Of course not.
Levi says.
You are a highly decorated captain of one of the flagships of the fleet. A fool does not achieve that kind of stature.
That?
Pardon?
You said achieve that kind of stature. That, as in the past tense. I think you mean this. A fool does not achieve this kind of stature. I am still captain of this ship.
My apologies.
Levi says.
Of course you are.
Don't you condescend to me. I'm the only one that knows what's going on here.
Which is exactly why I'm sitting across from you. Can you explain to me what exactly is going on here?
I can f***ing show you!
I shout. The cabin door slides open.
We are fine, Master Sergeant.
Levi says as Shen looks in on us.
Sir, I really must insist that the door stays open,
Shen says.
As chief of security, it's my duty to... I said we're fine.
Levi interrupts.
Thank you.
Yes, Shen, thank you.
I glare at the mad traitor. The door slides closed.
Show me.
Levi says, and nods at the tablet in my hands.
Show me what is going on here, Captain.
I'm holding the tablet,
I say,
Yes, of course.
angling the tablet so he can see, but still keeping it out of his reach. I bring up the footage of Kane.
He leaves the mess here.
I say, narrating the action so he doesn't miss anything.
He takes the lift down to this very deck. Then he retrieves a book from his cabin.
A book?
Levi asks, looking puzzled.
What book?
I laugh.
You'll never guess.
There are billions of books, so I suppose I never will guess. But before you tell me, let me ask another question first, if I may.
He waits for me to respond. I nod.
When you say a book, do you actually mean a physical book?
He asks.
Not on a tablet, but a paper and ink printed book?
That's what a book is.
Okay, yes.
He says and nods.
Okay, yes, what?
That is what his shipmates have said.
Levi says.
That Kane was going down to his cabin to retrieve an actual physical book he keeps with him. Apparently, the book has been in his family for generations. They say he said it was his good luck charm.
Good luck charm. Do you know what book it is?
No, Captain Lambert, I do not. Tell me, please.
F***ing Moby Dick!
I shout, triumphant. He'll for sure understand now. But all I see is puzzlement on his face.
Moby Dick?
Yes!
I say, eager for him to get it.
The book by Herman Melville?
Yes, can you believe it? Can you believe any fool would dare to bring that book on my ship?
He scratches at his chin and then looks from me to the tablet.
And you can see that he has that book in his hands on that footage?
Yes!
I say.
You must have missed it. I'll rewind the footage.
Before he can say anything, I do just that. I hold the tablet a little closer so he can see it more clearly.
There!
I shout.
Right there, see? He holds out the book, showing it to someone. The f***ing audacity!
Right. Yes. And exactly why is he audacious?
For bringing that book on my ship. It's bad luck! A ship with that book on it is doomed.
Oh, I've never heard of that before.
What?
I laugh.
Every decent sailor knows that.
Do they?
Levi asks.
I'm sorry, Captain Lambert, but that's a new one to me.
My shoulders slump. He's as mad as all the rest. I set the tablet aside and rub my face. When I look at Levi again, he is watching me closely.
What?
I ask.
Please, continue. What happens to Ensign Kane?
He gets into an argument with someone.
I say, no longer interested in telling this imposter the truth. His madness has closed him off, just like it has with my crew.
Who does he get into an argument with?
Levi asks. I shrug.
Please, Captain Lambert, I want to hear your theory.
My theory? Why?
I'm sorry? Why what?
Why bother listening to me when your mind is already made up?
I ask.
Your mad mind.
Mad mind? You think I'm mad?
I shrug. He grabs for the black orb, but I grab his wrist before he can take the recorder away.
Captain,
he says quietly. I look down and snatch my hand away.
That was rude of me. It's all right,
he says.
You are under a good amount of stress.
I am, yes,
I say and sigh.
I mean, look at the state of my cabin, will you? The captain's cabin shouldn't look like this.
He smiles and looks around. I see him studying the mess. His eyes fixate on the half-eaten meals on the food trays. Then he looks back at me.
Is your carbon reclamation chute out of order?
It's clogged,
I say.
I've been so absorbed in studying the footage that I haven't called maintenance.
Understandable,
he says and starts to stand up.
Here, let me help tidy up a bit. We can at least put the trash in the chute for now. Get it off your bed and your floor and your nightstand.
No!
I cry and get to my feet.
This is my cabin, and it is my responsibility to clean up my own mess.
He hesitates and then lowers himself back into the chair. I move to one of the trays that's sitting on my bedside table. Then I spin around and hurry to the tablet.
No, you don't,
I say, and tuck the tablet into my waistband at the small of my back.
There's nothing to worry about, sir,
he says.
I've seen all I need to on that tablet.
I ignore his lies and return to the tray. With one eye on Levi, I go to the carbon reclamation chute and lift the small door. The cramps in my neck and back become 1,000,000 times worse and I wince.
Captain?
Levi asks.
Are you all right?
Then he puts a hand to his nose.
What's that smell? The chute is clogged,
I say.
I already told you that.
Just as I close the chute, Levi leans forward and points.
Hold on. What was that?
He asks and stands up.
Open that chute again, please. Why?
My hand is still on the chute's handle.
I saw something in there,
he said. His eyes lock on mine.
Captain, I'd like you to step away from the chute,
he says, then points at the opposite corner of my cabin.
Stand over there, please. No. Do I need to call Master Sergeant Shen?
He asks.
You,
I say, and retreat to the far corner of my cabin. Once I'm in place, Levi moves to the chute. He tries to keep an eye on me too, but he fails the moment he opens the chute.
Holy God,
he whispers, then reaches in and pulls something out from the top of the refuse heap that clogs my carbon reclamation chute. I watch him inspect the item. Then he looks past what's in his hands and at the clog itself.
Oh,
he says and whirls around. But it's too late for Levi. I'm already racing across the cabin by the time the words have passed his lips. I pick up the black orb, lift it over my head, and bring it down in a brutal arc, connecting with Levi's left temple. His knees buckle, and I shove him hard into the chute. As he falls back onto the clog, his grip loosens, and the item tumbles to the deck. With weak hands, Levi tries to ward me off, but he can't stop the blow as I rain down on him. The orb connects over and over with his head until his face is mush. My cabin door opens behind me, and in seconds, hands grab me by my shoulders and throw me across my cabin. My head hits the wall, and I'm slightly dazed as hands grab me again, then throw me face down onto my bunk. My arms are pulled up behind my back and secured. Broussard hurries past my bunk to the chute. It must be Shen's knee in the center of my back.
Oh God,
Broussard says as he carefully pulls Levi's body from the chute and lowers it to the floor. He checks for a pulse. Good luck with that. Realizing he can't save Levi, Broussard stands and looks in the chute.
Dear God,
he whispers.
Oh, come on,
Shen says, his knee still pinning me down.
Don't tell me they've been in there all this time.
Broussard turns around, and I can see the sickly green color of his skin. He nods. Shen says.
I'll call it in.
While Shen calls his security team and the ship's doctor, I look down at the item lying at Broussard's feet.
Can you put that back in there, Commander?
I ask. Broussard glances down at his feet and picks up the item. He studies it and shakes his head.
Kane's book,
he states.
You killed him over a book? Moby Dick,
I respond.
The worst luck a ship can have is to have that book on board. Jesus,
he says, and lets the bloody book fall from his grip.
Then why kill the others? Isn't it obvious?
I ask.
The bad luck was spreading and I had to stop it. Obviously, I am too late since all of you are mad.
This is crazy, Broussard whispers.
Crazy?
I ask with a laugh.
You can clearly see them conspiring in the footage on my tablet.
Broussard snags my tablet from my desk and holds it up for me to see.
There is no footage,
he yells.
I had your tablet disconnected from the network. No,
I say, and stare at the tablet screen. It's blank. He puts the tablet closer to my face.
You purged the surveillance data from the mainframe,
he says.
Levi's techs were able to access our system, and they found your authorization code hidden in there. You wiped it all clean. No,
I repeat as I shake my head.
I saw it all. I believe you did see it all,
Broussard says.
Because you did it all.
Images flood my brain, but not images of surveillance footage. These images are memories? I see myself in the footage now. I argue with Kane. I confront Parker. I bash Curzel's teeth in. I glance at Levi's body on the deck and then up to Broussard's face. "You should be thanking me," I say as the sound of heavy boots fills my ears and I'm lifted off my bunk by several hands. "Thanking you? I stopped the bad luck," I say. "You're welcome." I laugh at the look on Broussard's face as I'm dragged out of my cabin. The ungrateful fools have no idea what I've done for them. The poor, mad fools. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and smash that like button to get notified every time I upload a new video. You can also check out some more of my animated horror stories right here.